My teenage self would really be surprised to see me here in the Corn Exchange, where I used to come when I was a teenager to buy jewellery and clothing, speaking to you about creative spaces. So it's an absolute pleasure for me to stand here in this wonderful space. Firstly, just a quick introduction to me. So I'm Eve. I work for Leeds City Council, and I've worked for Leeds City Council for 18 months. I lead on economic development, and that involves quite a wide range of activities. So we do everything from international relations, managing some of the civic relationships and our participation in programmes like Eurocities, through to really practical business support. So Danielle's here tonight representing Adventure, and Leeds City Council deliver the Adventure programme. But most importantly, my role includes leadership of the delivery of our inclusive growth strategy for Leeds. So back in 2018, we set out our plans for how we wanted to grow and develop the economy in Leeds. And that was set out in our inclusive growth strategy. And in that strategy, that was our commitment to saying, actually, this isn't just about growing the economy for growth's sake, and making sure that that people in the city who are already successful continue to be successful. It was a recognition of the fact that this city had growing inequality, and that actually we're interested in making sure that everybody in this city reaches their full potential. In the strategy, we set out 3 areas of people, place and productivity. And actually all of these intersect really in terms of tonight and thinking about some of the speakers you'll hear. But I'm just going to pause briefly around some of the things that we're committed to in the productivity area. So we've very specifically said that we're committed to maximising the economic benefits of culture. So that means that yes, it's looking at it through an economic lens because it's an economic growth strategy, but it's about valuing what culture brings to our city and how that supports our broader activity as a city, and recognising it in that way is important. We also have a big idea in there around backing innovators and entrepreneurs, and that is not just about innovators and entrepreneurs that come out of, say, Leeds University working with really high-end researchers. That's about ground-up entrepreneurs and innovators, many of who, there's many in this room who I know who are innovators and entrepreneurs. So we're not just interested in that high-end research stuff, which is really important to us. We're also interested in helping everybody that wants to make a success here in the city in that way. Another one of our commitments is around Leeds as a digital city, and actually probably getting to a point where everybody can reach their full potential and benefit from the digital economy. And that's kind of a fundamental kind of side to some of the creative digital space in the city. So just give you that by way of context to then kind of give you, then talk a little bit about then why do we value kind of spaces and co-working spaces in the city. Well, we value them because we know that businesses really appreciate being able to have the flexibility when they're in a startup mode or they're small scale, to be able to flex their finances, whether it's about flexing finances on the desk, whether it's about mental health and being able to connect with other businesses rather than just simply working from home. Whether it's about networking, so many of the sort of co-working spaces in the city have different ways of facilitating networking. Whether it's actually about supporting one another, so we know many stories of co-working spaces in the city where actually people meet one another and then they become customers of one another based on their businesses, and that's really, really important when you're getting off the ground. So we understand that dynamic, and we've been really pleased to see and both support and see growth in different types of co-working spaces in the city, and how that's really kind of exploded over the last bit of time. But we also know we've got issues. So we did a bit of a call to evidence at the back of 2018, the beginning of 2019, about creative and digital workspaces across the city, in particular focus on the city centre actually. And what that told us was that the market is delivering very well for tech, digital and telecom type industries. So if you are a digital startup, if you work in that area and you want co-working spaces, there's plenty of them, and the price is good for the customer. So we see that with things like Avenue HQ, with the Tech Hub and platform, with ODI Leeds, some types of those businesses in Duke as well, and in kind of the Leeming buildings. What it really exposed, though, was kind of a lack of more affordable kind of spaces for makers and more creative people that need kind of different types of spaces to be able to grow their business, whether that's someone that might be in textiles, let's say, or just wanting a slightly different type of space. And that led us to kind of making some interventions, which I guess are kind of quite significant interventions around supporting 3 particular projects which we announced last year around supporting Leeds Media Centre and refreshing that as a particular facility to the city and putting some finances into that, helping Match Charity secure their building and protecting that for the city, and also supporting the Arts Hostel and making sure that East Street Arts retain that presence right in such close proximity to the city. And that builds on some of the interventions we made a few years before that in terms of some of the financial support we were able to give through Tech Hub funds to ODI Leeds and Duke and others. And also in the past we have been able to support people like Shine with applications for funding through European funding. But there is a lot more for us to do. And so I'm not going to pretend that those interventions alone are going to solve our challenges. But what I will say is that I think there is a real growing understanding of how actually you need different types of businesses and different types of people to drive innovation. And as we make some big decisions in the city over the next period, so how is, for example, the hospital will be selling a large piece of land, which they have committed to the purpose of that being for innovation. How do we make sure that when they redevelop that piece of land, that yes, it helps those researchers from the hospital with that high-end link into the university to do that type of research, but we also welcome in there people that have different types of creative background that bring value there. And some of this is happening in Europe. You can see it in some cities like Munich, where I visited in October, where you can see they have established locations where they've got maker spaces right alongside the likes of Deloitte and others, and the vibrancy that brings. And I think our challenge is how we work together to kind of unlock some of this discussion, not just with those of you that are in the room here, but also some of our property developers and investors across the city, so that we really create sort of spaces that bring people together from different dynamics and help us respond to all the challenges that we have in kind of today in terms of how we thrive as a city going in through the next decade. So that's kind of where I wanted to end and just underline. One more thing I will say is that I believe there's a lot of opportunity for us over the next period of time. So I mentioned the hospital investment and the potential for a site there. But also some of the things we've been thinking about as we've been going through this Massachusetts Institute of Technology REAP program. And every time I have to say that, it's such a pain in the ass. Regional Entrepreneurship Accelerator program. What we've been doing there is just thinking about, well, actually, how can we connect some of the different things that are happening in different places in the city more effectively? How can we galvanise some of those things into kind of challenges for the city where we work together on some of the things that we face around, whether that's climate change, whether it's ageing population, and galvanise all the different perspectives and talents. So I'm really excited about how that might develop over the next period of time, and how all of you here might be able to respond to that and how that might support you. Now, sadly, I can't stay in terms of having further discussion with you because I've got to get home for my family. But Danielle is going to be here, and Danielle said if she can't answer the question, that she will make sure that she links back to me, and we'll try and answer a question. So apologies I can't stay for the full evening, but hope you understand. Thanks.